सदा हरे राम राम सदा हरे कृष्ण हरे राम सदा हरे कृष्ण सतत निम्न चरण सेवे सदा हरे सदा सुमनवा मानिंदनं विधेनु श्रीरामचंद्र सदा सदा नालिगेयलि हरे राम हरे राम सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै शांति शांति शांति। We will chant Bhaj Govindam verses 1 to 10. Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam, Govindam, Bhaj Mate Samprapte Sannihite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrune मूढ़जहि धनागम तृष्णां कुरु सद्बुद्धिं मनसि वितृष्णां यल्लभसे निज कर्मोपातं वित्तं तेन विनोदय चेत्तम् नारीस्थन भरनाभिदेशं दृष्टमात्रा मोहावेशम् ये तन्मां सवसादि विकारं मनसि विचिन्तय वारं वारम् नलिनी दलगत जलमति तरलं तत्त्वजीवितमतिशय चपलम् Vidhi vyadhyabhimanagrastam lokam shokahatam cha samastam yavad vittopajana shaktah tavan nija parivaro raktaha paschajivati jarjara dehe vartam kopi na pruchhati gehe yavat pavano nivasati dehe tavat pruchhati kushalam gehe gatavati vayau dehapaye bharya bibhyati tasmin kaye balastavat kridasaktah tarunastavat tarunisaktah vruddhastavat chintasaktah parame brahmani kopina saktah kate kanta kaste putrah samsaro yamativa vichitraha kasya tvam kaha kota ayatah tattvam chintaya tadiha bhratah satsangatve nissangatvam nissangatve nirmohatvam nirmohatve nischalatatvam nischalatatve jivanmuktihi vayasi gate kaha kama vikaraha shushke nire kaha kasaraha kshine vitte kaha parivaro jnate tatve kaha samsaraha bhaja govindam govindam bhaja mudhamate samprapte sannihite kale nahi nahi rakshati dukrun karane. So we have the previous class we have concluded the chapter strength of emotion. It is not that we have concluded, we have to visit and understand more and more and try to develop the understanding and control over the emotion, the strength of emotion chapter, and it is leading to the chapter light of wisdom, which is what we are going to take up today. So the process of, as we discussed in the previous class, you have to eliminate the desires. Human being minus desires is equal to the Supreme God, the enlightened state, the Supreme Self, the Atman, which you are. You can reach that state of Godhood only through elimination of desires. So the divinity already within you, you are the God yourself, the desires covering it. So you have to clean drop all your desires through gaining this knowledge of Vedanta. So that is the price you pay to regain your divinity, which is what we covered the previous class. Now the introduction to the light of wisdom. Wisdom. So the human being alone has to gain the knowledge. No other species on the earth needed any education, any knowledge, except a human being. And hardly any human being understands this most important aspect of human being, which is knowledge. And the knowledge, there are three living species, as we all know. What are they? Plants, animals, and human. Plants have only a physical body. They have no mind, no intellect, no manasu, no buddhi. Animals have mind, but no intellect. Therefore, they have a brute force. They have a fixed information stored at the birth. A chick or a baby calf, they know exactly everything. They want to live their life. Everything is given at the very birth itself. They live a routine, mechanical, computerized existence because they have been provided everything at the package. They don't need any education, any graduation to understand and live life, except a human being. Human being has to learn how to live and practice by gaining knowledge and enter into the world to live. But unfortunately, no human being today understands this most vital aspect of himself, about knowledge of himself, knowledge of his own reality, his own individuality. Who is he is the unknown today. So today the great opportunity, that light of wisdom, the chapter deals with this, and in that we have the first topic, which is covering the vast realm of human being engulfed by the ignorance, the veil of ignorance, the ignorance shrouding the human being. Whole human being is encapsulated by ignorance. Ignorance gripped the human being. So what is this veil of ignorance we are going to study and understand today? So, veil of ignorance. There is but one reality. There is one truth, one reality, one God, one supreme self, one Atman, whatever name you give it, there is only reality and one reality alone exists. That is the actual truth. That is called the supreme God, the Paramatma, we call it Paramatma, the supreme God. And he is known as, described as omnipotent, all powerful, omniscient, all knowing, and omnipresent, means all pervading. These three descriptions of Brahman, the supreme God, the Atman, which you have within you. Beyond the sphere, this reality lies. This reality exists beyond the time, beyond the space, beyond the causation. Time, space, causation. These are the three ingredients which made up of this world. The reality is beyond this three sphere of time, space, causation. But though all pervading reality is everywhere, God is everywhere, to locate God, to search God, to reach God, to recognize God, you have to go and search the Supreme God within you. This is what the blunder every human being is making. Except where they're supposed to go and where they're supposed to locate, they are missing it cleanly and searching everywhere else except where it is supposed to be. Even though it is defined, it is described, God is everywhere. To locate God, you must go within. It is very interesting. God is everywhere, so we can find everywhere. People have that confusion. But therefore, here we need to take the understanding of this concept through best example. What is the example? You see the government. The government is everywhere. Government exists everywhere, all over the country. Even the territorial waters, even the dense forests, if you do anything against the rules of the government will arrest you. Government will catch hold of you, because government pervades everywhere of the country. But to locate the government people, where you supposed to go? You supposed to go to the capital of the country. For example, capital of the India is New Delhi. Similarly, capital of United States of America is Washington DC. Similarly, if you want to go to government of Australia, you have to go to Canberra. So, if you carefully analyze, you can't locate the government in the territorial waters. The government is pervading everywhere. Government exists everywhere. But to locate the government, you have to go to the capital city of the country. Similarly, to locate God, to locate the Atman, to locate Supreme Self, you have to go within you. You have to recognize inside you, not externally. This is the first mistake entire human being is doing, searching God everywhere except where it's supposed to be searched. You have to search within. Here is the great example as narrated. Just as a government spread all over the country is located in its capital, the philosophy of Vedanta, what is the procedure to locate God within you is to gain the knowledge of Vedanta philosophy, gradually instills the knowledge of the Supreme Self slowly within you, by which you transcend. Once you gain the knowledge of the Supreme Self, once you gain Vedantic knowledge, means knowledge of your inner being, your real being, you gradually, you transcend, you cross the limitations of the physical body, limitations of the mind, you cross over, and you cross over the limitation of your intellect, the shariram, manas and buddhi, which currently you are caught up and you are entangled, you are living whole life with this material equipment. The Vedanta knowledge gradually helps you to transcend these equipments of body, mind, intellect, and helps you merge with your inner Supreme Self. The Atman within you will be merged. You regain your infinite being which you have lost. It is ignorance. That's what he is going to cover. So, the step-by-step procedure is through knowledge of Vedanta. So, first you have to understand. There is but one reality alone exists, nothing else. And that reality, that Supreme God, that Atman is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, all-pervading reality. There is nothing but reality, and reality alone exists everywhere. Only Atman and Brahman. But even though it is everywhere, just as a government is located in the capital, similarly you have to locate God within you. How you have to locate to understand that government is in the capital city, the Atman is within you. So you have to turn inside. Even though you see, it has been symbolically represented by our sages and saints who helped us to go to the pilgrimage centers like Badrinath, Balaji, or the Lord Govinda, Venkateswara. You go to all the way to all temples or famous shrines. What you do after going inside the trekking, the jungle, trekking the steps of mountains and go to the temple of Sanctum Sanctorum. And having entered the deep within the Sanctum Sanctorum, what you do? You go into the front of the deity. You go to worship the deity. In front of the deity, in the queue, Jagandi, they will all go, keep on going, moving towards God. And when you see the Lord Darshan, when you have a darshan, what you will do? You will hold your hands and close your eyes. This closing your eyes represent God is not outside, God is inside. Hardly anybody has understanding. This is what one must have to recognize, and this is what even the Vedanta teaching us, the Vedantic philosophy helping us gradually transcend these limitations of this physical body, this mind, this intellect, and get to the supreme reality by merging into the self, and you can then regain your infinite being. So the God is all pervading, the omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, the supreme self is defined, described as. Now, having understood this, what happened today, at this moment, what is the condition of a human being? The ignorance of that one reality, that ignorance of one supreme God projects this pluralistic phenomena of the fantastic world in front of you. We are all experiencing this beautiful world of things and beings and living beings, inert objects, chara, achara, the scripture says. Chara means moving, achara means not moving. World is made up of two things, chara, achara, moving and non-moving. Moving, non-moving is the stones and all these inert objects, and moving is three things, animals, plants, animals, and human beings. So, the ignorance of one reality projects this pluralistic phenomena of this world. Just as to understand this, again, you need to take the example. If you take the example that Vedanta is very easy to relate, you need to correlate, you need to extrapolate the example and try to apply to the knowledge of reality. Just as there is a rope lying in the dark, a rope is lying in the dark, but a boy sees that rope in the dark and he projects an illusory snake. Carefully understand. The rope is there in the dark, but the ignorance of the rope projects an illusory snake. There is a rope lying. You know very well there is a rope. But a boy who is ignorant of the rope, he creates a snake which is illusory. Actually not real. It's imaginary. Similarly, it is the reality and the Supreme God alone exists everywhere. The Atman and Atman. Even we have Annamaya Kirtanas, Tyagaraja Kirtanas. Everything is Ramamayam. Everything is God, and God alone exists. But nobody is able to understand why. Ignorance of the Supreme Self creates this, projects this fantastic, illusory, pluralistic world. This is what you must understand. It is the reality, Brahman and Brahman alone, that appears to you right now. You are seeing the fantastic world of plurality, diversity, heterogeneity of living objects and beings because of the ignorance of the truth, ignorance of Supreme God within you. This ignorance of the Supreme Self projects this fantastic, illusory world of things and beings. This entire universe is just a projection, just as a snake is projected, an imaginary snake is projected upon a rope. There is a rope and rope alone exists. But what is that projected by an ignorant boy? The imagination, the ignorance of the rope projected a snake, which is an imagination, illusion. This, the creation of the universe. carefully understand. This is the knowledge you have to gradually cooperate to think along with it. The creation of this universe, therefore, this entire fantastic universe in front of you, you are seeing this universe is just brought out by the ignorance of your own intrinsic primal nature of the Supreme Self. When you gain the knowledge of the Supreme Self, when you gain the knowledge of God, when you gain the knowledge of Vedanta, your true self, the entire pluralistic world gradually folds back, recedes, and withdraws, and you merge with the supreme, all-pervading reality. Just as when the boy who projected an imaginary snake, illusory snake, where there was a rope alone, a boy, because of ignorance of rope, he projected an imaginary snake in the dark. The moment you switch on the light with the knowledge of the rope, he gains the knowledge. With the knowledge of the rope, he is a snake, imaginary snake, and the consequent fears and sufferings and worries and tensions of that snake completely disappears. Where is the snake? Snake doesn't exist at all. Because of the ignorance of the rope, created this imaginary snake, and he is suffering by this snake and snake bite, snake poison, and snake suffering, snake pain, everything is suffering. But the moment he gains the knowledge of the rope, the snake disappears. Similarly, friends, we are all caught up in this fantastic, beautiful, imaginary universe projected because of the ignorance of Brahman, the Supreme God, the Self within you. The moment you gain the knowledge of the Supreme Self, the Atma Vidya, Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of the reality, knowledge of God, you gradually withdraw this imaginary world, the world of objects and beings, world of plurality starts melting away. One reality. You see Brahman and Brahman everywhere. You become Brahman because there is only one thing exists, God and God alone. The scriptures are saying, the great masters are telling, all your experience are telling at point of time that imaginary world, and they're all changing phenomena, and the substratum is the Atman and Brahman alone. So, with the dawn of knowledge, what is that which gives away this ignorance born in this universe? Only through the dawn of knowledge of your own true self, your own true being, your own real being, this entire world folds back. You merge with the supreme, all-pervading reality. So, what is that which is making you currently suffer? You are suffering because of your own ignorance of self. Ignorance of the self, the Atman, keeps you in the darkness. All the time you are suffering because of your ignorance of yourself, keeps you in darkness all through your life. Because you know everything about you, only your description and prescription about your unreality, illusory, imagination. It's like a boy describes about snake and imaginary snake because of ignorance of the rope. You remember that example, you keep them in mind about that example all the time to understand this. Ignorance of the self keeps you in darkness all through your life. You do not know who you are. You always tell about yourself, your name, your fame, your background, your height, your weight, all belongs to non-essentials of you. Your body, mind, intellect, not yourself. Nobody knows themselves. So here is clearly explaining, understanding that we are groping in the darkness of ignorance of our own self. All through your life, we are led into darkness, groping in the self-created, deluded world. See what's happening. Groping means we are under the complete control, groping, gripping in the self-created, deluded world. This is who created this world. You created. Who created the snake? Ignorance of the rope projected or created by you being ignorant. Similarly, right now you created this imaginary world. This world itself created by your own ignorance. This ignorance is created by yourself, a self-created, deluded world. Because of this, you caught up further with the knocks and shocks of life. Once a person is projected a snake, created a snake, snake starts biting, the poison is rising, the pain is increasing. Similarly, you created this world and you project this world, self-created, and the world starts creating shocks and knocks, attacks to you, and you are not able to come out of it. You are a slave, you are a victim, you are crushed by this world of objects and beings and people around you because of your own self-created ignorance and deluded world threatening you. It is a total madness of mankind is going on without knowing what is happening with every human being. Imagine yourself, you moving about in a room plunged in darkness. Imagine yourself moving about in a room plunged in darkness. A room is full of darkness and you are trying to move in the darkness. What will happen? You can't see anything. Therefore, what will happen? You keep hitting. You strike against niches and notches, fittings and furniture, because you can't see anything. You are trying to move. Everything attacks you. So you are getting injured, you are getting cut, and you can get bruises, you can get all the injuries because you are moving in the darkness. So what will happen? You will injure yourself. So too, in the whole world, people are groping in ignorance and darkness in the world. Ignorance is equal to darkness. So in ignorance, in the world, people are suffering. They plunge into sorrow and misery because they are moving in ignorance. They are not able to know that they are moving in darkness. They are just moving and living in the darkness of ignorance. So what is the solution? A person who is trying to move in the darkness, you have to nothing to do. You don't have to change the furniture. You don't have to change the position of the items here in the room. Simply you have to switch on the light. You just know how to steer yourself inside the room. Similarly, the solution to this problem is to bring light into your room, to bring light into your bosom, light of wisdom. Light means knowledge of your reality, who you are. Once you gain the knowledge of who you are, what you are, your ignorance goes and this world will not affect you anymore. The light of wisdom into your bosom. Gain the knowledge of your supreme self. It is the ignorance that converts the kingdom of heaven into veritable hell. If you are experiencing any hell, any suffering because of ignorance, and the only way to get out of this ignorance is through gaining knowledge. And knowledge alone is the remedy. So, once you gain the knowledge of the Supreme Self, the world stops attacking you, providing suffering and sorrow. You will be stalwart, you will be king, you will be experiencing heaven only through gaining the knowledge of the reality, knowledge of the Supreme Self. Or else, ignorance converts this heaven into hell. There is no hell outside except your own ignorance. You have to gain the knowledge by hook or crook. By Bennett's point, how to gain the knowledge of the reality. If not, you will be definitely affected. You will be definitely getting attacked by knocks and shocks of life. As many times I told you already, there is a Lord Vishnu who has got 4 hands. One hand lotus, another hand conch shell, third hand gada, mace, fourth hand chakra, which is sword disc, the discus throw, Sudarshan chakra. This is Lord Vishnu is standing and showing 4 hands. The lotus represents the self, the Atman within. The conch is the inner calls, go within and try to gain the knowledge of the self and merge into the self. But human being is groping in the darkness and the ignorance and trying to get involved in the affairs of the external world of objects and beings and gets knocks and shocks. Without going within, he is going extrovert, and as the result of which he is getting mace. Gada means knocks and shocks. You get financial problems, physical health problems, emotional problems, intellectual problems, relationship problems and problems everywhere because of Gada. All the time knocks and shocks of life. And once at least you wake up from the knocks and turn inside and get to the knowledge of the reality, you will be saved, you will reach the reality. But if you choose to not to go within and choose to go extroverted and constantly go forward to the external world of imaginary, illusory world, it's like moving in the dark room, going non-stop, not recognizing that you are not supposed to go, and you try to switch on the light and get onto the reality, then the ultimate end will come, the Sudarshan chakra. So, this is what here is clearly defined. It is the ignorance of the reality that converts this kingdom of heaven. The world is a heaven. You create a hell because of ignorance of that reality. You may use your physical body for sensual pleasures. Nothing wrong in using the physical body for sensual pleasures. You may use your mind to indulge with emotional joys. You may use your intellect with entertain with knowledge, but you may give all this, but the body, mind and intellect, they can never give you everlasting peace and satisfaction. They can only provide you temporary satisfaction. Their enjoyment turns to sorrow and misery. This law, nobody can change it. So there is no more happiness everlasting in the body, mind and intellect with sensual pleasures, emotional joys, intellectual knowledge and satisfaction. These are material equipments. They can never provide you with enduring peace, everlasting joy and happiness. Happiness can never be achieved through these equipment. You have to gain the knowledge of the Supreme Self alone, and it can reach you to the eternal abode of peace and bliss. The Akhandanand, Brahmananda and Atmananda and permanent Ananda. You can get permanent bliss only through knowledge of the reality, knowledge of the self, knowledge of the Atman alone will give you this happiness which you are seeking all the time in the world. So, these material equipments of the body, mind and intellect only give you temporary satisfaction. They can never give you permanent peace and happiness, is the knowledge one has to recognize. So, carefully you have to understand the ignorance of the self. This ignorance of the Supreme Self, this ignorance generates endless desires. What happened? First of all, human being has to recognize that there is one reality. But today, nobody understands that reality. They are groping, they are caught up in the ignorance of the self. Okay, they are caught up in ignorance of the self. They are not stopping at that. This ignorance of the Supreme Self, the reality, generates endless desires. So you stop any human being. What is that? He has many, many millions of things. Adi Shankaracharya in Bhajagovindam, he beautifully says a great sloka. I think we have just chanted also. What is that he says? Balastavat kridasakta, tarunastavat tarunisakta, vruddhastavat chintasakta, parame brahmani kopina sakta. The entire childhood, you are caught up in the toy world because of desires, endless desires for the toys. The moment you grow out of the childhood and teenager and adult, you get caught up in passions. Tarunasta, taruni saktaha. Passions for the name, fame, power, position, status, money, family, relations, and worldly acquisition and enjoyment. How to earn, how to enjoy, how to earn and enjoy. Totally preoccupied with the mad rat race of the world. Then you go beyond. One day you will become old and become weak and incapacitated to function. You get caught up in the old age pangs. What is it? Old age. Vruddhastavat chintasakta. All the time worried and anxious. You are constantly worried about the past, what all you have done, blunders, and anxious, what will happen future. You are worried about the future. Your mind is totally preoccupied with the endless desires because of the ignorance of the self. Lord Adi Shankaracharya defined about the plight, sad state of human beings. And Parame Brahmani Kopina Saktaha. Who is there in this world? Who is there who really thinks about the reality, the truth, the Atman, which is the base and substratum, the support, the very essence and quintessence of yourself? Nobody is interested. A very, very pessimistic, sad way is putting in the context, because 1 in a million is not interested in this subject of reality, and one very rare one pursues it and rare one reaches is the indication. But that is the truth. Ignorance of the self generates these endless desires. These desires at any level is because of ignorance of your reality. The moment you recognize you are having this cancerous disease of ignorance, and you will be a great human being. Ignorance of the self generates endless desires. The desires, they don't keep it quite as they are. They further modify themselves into variety of facets. What are they? They become various modifications like a greed, lust, delusion, arrogance, envy, hatred, fear, anger. The various negative emotions are modified desires. Because of the desires, the further modifications will be happening with the desires of the gross level, means at the lower level. At the higher level, the same desires will be converting themselves, modifying themselves into aims, ambitions, aspirations, goals, purpose, or something to achievements. So at the subtle level, the desires become goals and ambitions and aspirations. At the gross level, they become greed and lust and envy and arrogance and fear and hatred. These are all causes at the subtle level or gross level because of the endless desires caused by the ignorance of the Supreme Self, ignorance of the reality, ignorance of Godhood within you. This is the cause and effect. All these passions and desires hold you as a hostage and grips you to this world. You are entangled, you are enmeshed, you are encapsulated in this world of bondage because of these desires and these passions and these consequent emotions and aspirations. All these are caused because of the ignorance of the self. You are held hostage by this world, and you are thereafter bound in the terrestrial realm of desire and ambition. You are justified whatever you have. You justify everything. I have an ambition, sir. I have to achieve this, sir. I have to achieve that, sir. I have to get to this, sir. I have to get to that, sir. You are really, genuinely sincere, honest. But what is happening to you? Unfortunately, you are not aware. The ignorance of the Supreme Self grips you to this world, and this world with passion and ambition. Either passion and desires of sensuality, materiality, with the emotional level of desires, or ambition, aspiration for the subtle level, all within the world. The way to out of your bondage and consequent suffering is to dispel the darkness of your ignorance of yourself. There is no other way to it. There is no other remedy to it except knowledge. You have to gain, dispel the ignorance through knowledge of the reality. Knowledge of yourself alone provides the light of wisdom. I already told you, a boy in the dark experiencing created an imaginary snake, illusory snake, and he is not only created a snake, he is bitten by the snake. He is running towards you and crying and telling, sir, snake bit me, poison is raising in my leg, in my ankle, slowly it is becoming into the calf, and slowly the leg, it is raising, he is crying. An imaginary snake, an illusory snake is created because of, carefully you get back to the formula, ignorance of the rope. You know, in the light, you switch on the light, you kept a rope, and there is a rope, and rope alone exists, nothing else. Because of your ignorance of the rope, the child's ignorance of the rope projected an imaginary snake, illusory snake, and the consequent suffering of the bite and suffering of the poison, suffering of the snake and everything. But raising of the hood and everything. But the moment you give the knowledge of the rope, what happened to that snake? The snake instantly disappears. Snake completely comes out, and the boy is completely freedom from the consequent suffering of the poison is disappeared, the pain is disappeared, itself is disappeared. This is all the thing happened to human being. Right now, human being is crushed by this fantastic world of plurality, diversity, knocks and shocks of life, of pain and pleasure, joy and sorrow, honor and dishonor, birth and death, feelings and emotions, ambitions, every chaotic lifestyle going on. Like everybody is like living in a fluctuations of this worldly challenges and crushed by this world, tormented by this world because of lack of understanding. What is that? Just ignorance of reality. The moment you gain the knowledge of your Supreme Self, the world of plurality gradually melts away and the reality surfaces itself, and you be freed from the sufferings of this external world. This is what the knowledge of the self is, the remedy. It provides you the light of wisdom and discharges your desires, and the desires will gradually removed, and the worldly clingings, worldly attachments recede, and you will get peace and bliss. This light within you, the Supreme Self, the Atman, the light glows eternally within you. It is not there now, it was not there before. It's not like that. It was there before, it is there now, it will be there forever. Reality is that which is ever existing permanently. Because of your ignorance of your reality, you projected this imaginary world and you generated your desires and you caught up in this world of plurality because of the desires and passions and ambitions. By gaining the knowledge of the self, by gaining the knowledge of reality, the desires recede and consequent bondage to the world clutches, you will be relieved and you be free from these sufferings of the world. The light glows eternally within you. Light, you are the Supreme Self, you are the light. You need not seek or pray for light. You need not beg light from anybody because the light is within you. You are the light, Tattvamasi. You are that, you are the Atman, you are the self already. Ignorance of the self. See, there is only one rope and rope alone exists. Snake never existed. But the boy projected a snake because of ignorance of the rope. Similarly, you projected this world because of ignorance of your own reality. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to seek anywhere. You don't have to pray anywhere. You don't have to think about anything else except yourself. The self is within you. You gain that light. How you gain that light? Through study, through knowledge, through understanding, through reflection, through contemplation, through investigation, through research within you. Upon these truths of life of Vedanta presents you, laid down by Vedanta. Only Vedantic knowledge helps you to remove this ignorance and gain the knowledge of the reality. So you have to study this by regular early morning, especially 4 to 6 a.m. is Brahma Muhurta. You have to study, reflect on the truths, contemplate upon the truths of who am I, what is this body, mind and intellect, how this world come about, how am I come about. You have to investigate yourself by yourself. There is no other remedy to it, to unfold yourself, to reveal the self within you. Contemplate upon the truths of life laid down in Vedanta. Slow, but only problem is you should not be biased or prejudiced or influenced by anybody outside. Any master or messiah, religion or teacher or book or anything. You have the capacity. You must study yourself. Approach it independently. Approach it freely. Approach originally, not any external agent, because the self you have, you are the self already. God is you have already. The same self will reveal to you the clarity when you approach it independently. That's what is the approach. Approach them freely, independently, with no bias, no prejudice. Let your intellect examine it per se. You analyze yourself by yourself. Analyze and apply your discretion and accept the truths on their own merit. Accept truths based on their merit, just as science you study or mathematics you solve problems by your own application and derivation by yourself, experimentation by yourself, examination by yourself. No prejudices, no biases, no copying, no following blindly by anybody else's words. Your own original thinking applied to grow spiritually. Hardly anybody approaches this. They have great knowledge of reality through this process. Everybody follows blindly others' words, others' thoughts, others' ideas, and they're crushed by others and suffering by others all the time. It could be any master or a messiah or any book or any religion or any belief or any ritual or anything. Without thinking originally, you will be crushed by this world. So you must take up Vedanta with independent spirit, with no prejudice, no bias, completely clear with your existing intellect. You apply with your intellect and analyze and accept the truths on their own merit. The process of learning will gradually, this process of edifying by yourself, one statement at a time, this gradual approach to this great knowledge gradually unveil, gradually reveal, gradually unfold the self within you. The knowledge of the self thus dispels the ignorance gradually and resurrects your divine being to yourself. You become divine being, you become supreme being by your own application. All the other procedures of by-hearting, reproducing, following blindly others will not help you anymore, will not give you any inch of development. You must develop by yourself, by your own application. Just as, for example, you can understand, you wanted a physical fitness, for example, a six-pack. You want to become a six-pack like a film star, a strong physical fitness. You get the knowledge from various sources. You explore the Google and books and trainers and everybody. You employ physical fitness trainer. You bring a great gymnasium, everything. But having studied and examined according to your personality, you must get on to your training by yourself. You practice by yourself to get the fitness, physical fitness for six-pack or whatever the training for the diet and practice and discipline, everything to get that. It is you have to do by yourself. Similarly, friends, to unveil yourself, to help the self-realization, to help the divinity bring out from within you, you have to approach originally, freely, independently, clearly with your existing intellect. There is no other shortcut, there is no other method to it. The great science of Vedanta guides you, no doubt, but you have to put your efforts to get to that self. Now, what is this ignorance and what is this knowledge? The vast majority misunderstand here. The knowledge and ignorance, both are in a way the two sides of the coin. There is a different degree, but not in kind. Carefully understand. So, 0 to 100, a person is 10% of knowledge. Above 10% he is ignorant, below 10% he has got knowledge. It is a difference in degree. That point of 10% he got knowledge with reference to bottom 10%. But above him is ignorance. He is ignorant till 90. Similarly, knowledge and ignorance is different in degree. A person is in 50%, a person 10%. A 50% fellow is knowledgeable than this fellow. He is knowledgeable 10%, but he is still ignorant with reference to the 50. It is all relative. It is not absolute. 0 to 100, where you are. So knowledge and ignorance both differ in degrees, but not in kind. Not in kind. You have to carefully study this. The higher rung of the ladder is knowledge, while the lower rung of the ladder is ignorance. So it's like a ladder, rungs of the ladder, horizontal bars. One rung by another rung. The 0 to 100, you have to grow gradually from ignorance to knowledge. They are relative terms like light and darkness. You see, what is the light? What is darkness? Both are relative terms. What is the small lamp with reference to a better night lamp and night bulb compared to the tube light, compared to the big light, compared to the sunlight. Everything is light, but all are differs in degree. The darkness compared to the sunlight, this tube light is dark. Compared to the tube light, this midnight bulb is dark. So darkness and light both differ in degree, not in kind. Light and darkness also differ in degree, not in kind. The electrical light is bright compared to the dullness of candle light. The same electrical light becomes dull after the brilliance of sunlight. So light and darkness, ignorance and knowledge, therefore, are like positive and negative terms used in mathematics. So if you have x-axis and y-axis, at the point said to be a positive with reference to its negative side. So even though suppose if it is -1 in the left, in the x-axis, minus side and positive side, -1 is positive compared to -20. This Vedanta is like this. You need to be a little bit mathematical minded to understand Vedanta. We can't help it. But anyway, this paragraph is very, very interesting, and this subject is very, very interesting the more you go deeper and deeper. So, both points, the understanding is knowledge and ignorance. Knowledge and ignorance varies in degree, not in kind. But what is the knowledge in kind? What is that which doesn't belong to any degree? We will get to know in the next class. We will study, we will learn this great subject of Vedanta and light of wisdom, this chapter. In this portion, in this knowledge, we will be continuing the different in degree, different in kind. The clarity we will get more and more easily in the next class. Thank you very much. Hari Om.